Hello, Facebook. So I decided to get out of the house. I had an appointment earlier, and this has been on my heart um, to do a Facebook Live, or God's been putting it on my heart, I should say. And I've been resisting it and resisting it and resisting it, mainly because I am in a super emotional state. And usually that means something really good is going to come out, or something controversial will come out, or truth will come out. And all of that kind of scares me a little bit sometimes. And because I am super emotional, that who knows what's going to happen here. And hi, everybody. So I am at this beautiful park here, not far from my house, and I was driving down the road, and I have a big, beautiful backyard, but for some reason I think I needed to do this in a place that wasn't my own home. Oh boy, here it comes. I can feel it. I can feel it stirring, and I have no idea what it's about to come out. So I titled this The Shift, and I'll get to that, but I'm in this beautiful park that I've lived in Gilbert for about 16 years, minus 1 year that I decided I need to run away for a year from Gilbert, and that didn't work out so well. So I'm back here in Gilbert, and 16 years of not just my life, but my babies' lives have been here in Gilbert too. And this park that I'm at holds a lot of memories, some really, really amazing ones when they were little. Some hard times, some great ones. I played softball on the fields over there, thousands of games. I've hit many balls in the batting cages right around the corner, and I've watched my kids on the playground equipment here, and I fed the ducks here, and it's just a beautiful day here in Arizona. It's still, for the love, I swear, it's not above 90 degrees, yet here I am in a sweatshirt trying to influence the weather, and it's just not happening, but go Cubs. Anyway, I'm out of the house, and God drove me right into the parking lot here, so this is where I'm going to do this. And, last night I did a Zoom call, and it started about 10 weeks ago. For those of you that are in the same industry as me, it's network marketing, which honestly, it's a beautiful profession. So much growth has come from it, and I love it. But there are parts of it that are really, really hard and scary too, and I talk about that. And what started out the training 10 weeks ago was some skills. I felt there was a gap that needed to be filled from what I've heard from so many people. And very quickly it's turned into something much bigger than that. And, the old me really wants to retreat and pull away from it, and because it is really hard. It's really hard to evoke that much truth sometimes. And I was listening to a song this morning. It's my favorite song. Some of you know it's my favorite song. I've talked about it a lot. And, there's a part of the song that I love so much. It says, where you invest your love, you invest your life. And that's the part I always focus on. And this morning, the first words of the song are what hit me especially hard, because I'm feeling myself in a shift. And usually when I've been in a shift in the past is when I freak out and I run the other way. I haven't done that in 4 years, but I haven't been moved this much in a very, very long time. And the last, I'd say, 60 to 90 days, I have been shifted in ways that I didn't expect. It's freaking me out. I'm sitting in it and not running from it. However, it's still super, super uncomfortable. So last night we were talking about mindset and immersion and balance. And all of those things are really, really important. And anyway, back to that song. The first words of this song, it says, how fickle my heart and how woozy my eyes. I struggle to find any truth in your lies. And now I stumble on things I don't know. And now my heart stumbles on things I don't know. I fear my weakness I must finally show. And that part is hard. But I know this vulnerability is actually strength. But for 40 years I was conditioned that this vulnerability was weakness. And I know it's not. logically and psychologically, I know it's not. However, my heart still feels like, oh, this is so hard. And so I'm trusting the shift. I'm leaning into God's shift in me. And I know that this is for something much bigger than me. I have no idea. Oh, the song is Awake My Soul by Mumford & Sons. And ironically, when I went to rehab 4 years ago, I was sitting in a rehab center. And ironically, the only thing I had loaded on my iPod was Mumford & Sons and Eric Church. And so Mumford & Sons and I really became very close in that time. So that song is amazing. And I learned a lot in that little retreat, if you want to call it that. It was the hardest work I've ever done on myself. And it came with the biggest growth. And it was the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my life. And so much beautiful, beautiful things came from that. And I trusted the shift then. And like I said, I have not been moved since then, 4 years ago at this time. I have not been moved as much as I have been today, in the last few weeks especially. And it is scaring the shit out of me because I know amazing things are coming. And I've learned to trust it. And last night I talked about my dad. And I don't know if it is these stinking Cubs that are stirring so much emotion about him. I feel so close to him every day, and I know he's with me all the time, and there's not a sadness about him not being here like there used to be. I do miss him every day. Oh, Oceans is a great song. Oh my goodness. But I think it's the Cubs too. I mean, when he found out he was dying, it's literally some of the first words he says were, I guess the Cubs couldn't do it for me. And so I don't know if it's this emotion of them. I mean, I know it sounds silly, but I don't know what it is. But I feel him pushing on me really big, and he used to be so good at that. There was nobody that could push me like he could and evoke growth in me like he could other than God. And so I'm feeling him huge on me right now in such a beautiful way. And so if you've lost somebody that meant a lot to you, you don't have to be sad about it. Embrace it, and know that they're there with you. My dad is more present with me today than when I was here on earth with him. So he's pushing me. I'm picturing him saying, Trace, get your head out of your ass. Get your head out of your ass. The only thing you can count on is change. So embrace it. And so here we are in the shift. And 40 years of old patterns and habits had me running from the shift every time. Even when a good shift would come, I would sabotage it or run away from it. And this is the first time since rehab 4 years ago that I am sitting in the shift. And, one of the core basic human needs is certainty and uncertainty. And that gets kind of confusing sometimes. I talked about that last night. I'm a control freak, or was a control freak. I used to label myself as a control freak because that's how I would justify my behaviors. And, I've taken those labels off of me, and I've quit saying that's just who I am, or that's what I've always done, because you have the power to change at any moment. And especially if things aren't the way that you would like in your life, then, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So I quit labeling myself like that. And, I'm sitting in this shift and not sabotaging it and embracing this huge change that's coming. And one of my really good friends said to me, the last month I've spoken a lot and different words, even if you've heard me for 4 years, 3 years, 5 minutes, whatever, the things that are coming out of me, especially the last 30 days, are very, very different than anything that's happened with me. And it's freaking me out because I don't know what's going to happen with that. And that's the great thing, because we need uncertainty too. Uncertainty is when you expand your comfort zone, and, that's where the growth happens outside of that. And, for a long time, I tried to keep my beautiful little world so certain. And if you're not growing, you're dying. And so I have made it a mission to expand my comfort zone and, be careful what you wish for, because God is certainly expanding it beyond anything I imagined. And it is beautiful and terrifying all at the same time. So if maybe you're in that spot where you're feeling the shift happen, and here's another thing that happens with the shift, is, you start having different thoughts and behaviors, and your communication may change a little bit, and I don't know what that necessarily looks like for me. I'm seeing the, what is the word I want? I'm seeing the, crap. I'm at a loss for words. I'm seeing the results of my shift happening and how it's affecting people around me, and people I love very, very much. And it's hard because I know that maybe they're not loving this. They're not appreciating it, and I get it. And I have to continue on with what God is putting on my heart, regardless of who accepts it or receives it the way that it's intended. And that's the hard part. Because as somebody who's tried to please people their whole life, it's difficult when you're stepping into what God designed you to be. Shit. And it isn't always well received, so. But I won't resist it. I will keep doing it regardless. And I know many of you have been put in a shift and you've resisted it because people around you are responding in ways that you don't like or aren't comfortable or don't feel good or are rejecting you or making you feel like you don't belong a place. And I encourage you to just keep leaning into that shift and know that it is for something much bigger and more beautiful than you can even imagine. And so I'm leaning in. Even if it's just me and God, I'm leaning into it and know that big, beautiful things are coming, not just for me, because we're not here on this earth just to serve us and our greater good. It's for greater humanity. And I know that I am put here to help grow people, not my business, not even my beautiful children who are growing into just the most beautiful human beings, but humanity. This world needs it so desperately. And so I'm just going to keep stepping into it and help grow people, whatever that looks like. Last night, I'll finish with this because I don't want to keep you too long. Leaning into that shift means stepping into uncertainty. And that's when it gets really, really hard. And last night, again, I talked about my dad, and when I got the call from him, it was June 24th of 2012, and he told me, Trace, I don't have much time, and you got to come home. And, I talk about my dad, and for those of you 40 and older, if you know All in the Family, Archie Bunker, that is pretty much my dad. He had no filter, but he was the biggest, softest, most beautiful teddy bear as well. He had a huge heart, and you never had to guess what he was thinking, that's for sure. And literally on June 24th, 2012, actually, I came here after I received that call to play a softball game. I'll never forget it. I was in my backyard about a mile up the road, and I was in my softball uniform to come play right here that same day. And he called and said, Trace, you got to come home. I'm really, really sick, and they haven't given me much time. And because of the circumstances in my life, and I'm sure because of the denial I was having that this was actually happening, I, instead of getting on an airplane right away, which I should have, and I'm not going to shit all over myself, and don't you shit on all over yourself. It's one of the regrets I have because, 12 days later, I actually lost my dad. I had 12 days to process that, and thankfully, God put me on an airplane in just enough time to see him. He couldn't speak to me anymore, but I could see him, and I could love him and hold his hands as he left the earth. But he hasn't left me since, I know that. However, last night I talked about, a lot of us make vision boards and we talk about dreams and what we want in our life, but a lot of times our actions don't align with what our vision is. And, I wish I could have the conversation with my dad today, and I actually do, even though he can't respond. I know what he would say about what he would do differently if he knew he had... what would he do differently if he knew that his time was coming? And I know for myself, for the most part, the last 4 years especially, I have lived my life as though it was my last, and I am totally okay, sorta, if God decides to take me now. And part of me is like freaking out. I'm like, okay, is God planning my exit here or something? Because I'm very, you know, in touch with where I'm going, and I know I am. But if this were your last 12 days on earth, are your actions and your vision and what God's plan is for you aligned with everything that you do every day? And if the answer is no, then you need to make a shift. Then you need to make some decisions. And, you know, I know for a fact that most people, when they know they're at the end of their road, they don't regret the things that they've done. More importantly, they regret the things they haven't done. And I want to make sure I leave this earth with zero regrets, that I've told every person that I love them, that they know it, even if I have to distance myself from them, because there are some of those in my life that I do have to distance from just because it's not healthy for me, but that they know how much they're loved. And, you know, the part of that song that I love so much is, you know, where you invest your love, you invest your life. And every time I leave my house, I invest love in any human being I can come in contact with, because that is what this world needs, and that is what God is asking me to do. And even though it's not always the most well-received love, one of my friends said, you love hard, and that's okay. I do love hard. I love with everything I've got, and it's hard sometimes to love so hard, because, you know, as high up as you can go with that, you can drop, you know, you have a lot further to drop when you go that far up with it. So anyway, it was on my heart to talk to you about, you know, I know many of you feel yourself shifting as you grow yourself. Many of us that do what I do, it's a constant personal development program, which is something I never expected to come out of this. But as you personally develop, you are pushed out of your comfort zone, as long as you are willing. And, you know, last night I explained, you know, a lot of people want the secret sauce and how to change your life. And I'm going to tell you right now how you change your life. H, honesty. O, openness. And W, a willingness to do that and to be completely honest, open, and willing. And so I know that I've been doing that every day. And as you do that, you're going to grow. And growth, sometimes they don't call them growing pains for nothing. So I know I just I know I just grew here in the last 15 or so minutes, and I'm trusting the shift. I'm not running from the shift. I am sitting in the shift and moving and growing. You know, I'm not just sitting there waiting for things to happen. I am listening to that gut instinct that God gives all of us. I don't ignore it ever, and I tried to ignore this one. I was trying to ignore that I needed to talk to you guys and maybe share with you something that I've gone through that maybe could bless you or help you through whatever you're going through. And as much as I wanted to resist it, here I end up in this beautiful park with you, with God, and with my soul growing even more. And, you know, the other part of that song, and I'll leave it with this, is it says, lend me your eyes, I can change what you see, but your soul you must keep totally free. And I will keep doing the soul work and taking my soul medicine, no matter the cost, no matter the consequence, and no matter how lonely it feels sometimes. And I encourage you to do the same, because you are here for something much bigger than you. Humanity needs us to just love on each other, regardless of our beliefs, regardless of our political preferences, regardless of anything. This world needs a lot more love. And, you know, I believe that love never fails, ever. Even when it's painful, it does not fail you. So trust the shift. Trust that you are here for something much bigger than you. Trust that you are perfect just the way you are. Trust that the growth process, although it can be painful, is worth it. And trust that you are making a difference in everybody that you come in contact with. I know you're special. I believe you're special. And I love you. And I'm grateful for each and every one of you that have been part of my